here does look like the.
Hello and welcome to our weekly chakra discussion. Today we are digging into the third eye energy. I am Mimi. I am your Gaia Blooming proprietress. I bring you daily astrology videos, and I am here with the Omens, Ryan and Nicole.
Hi. I am Ryan, and I am going to do my best to try to interpret the energy of the third eye chakra, which is a little squirrely and disorienting. This is an energy that I tend to kind of make synonymous with Alice in Wonderland. So it's very much like we're all mad down here. And I'm excited to talk about it. As a matter of fact, this morning, as Nikki and I were driving our kids to school, we saw one of our favorite local celebrities. There's this elderly gentleman who walks with a cane and has an eye patch. And we call him Odin because Odin...
He looks kind of like...
He does. He looks a lot like, what's his name? From the Thor movies.
I can't think of the actor's name.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, there you go.
And so he walks around the neighborhood. He's just a jovial old man minding his own business. But every time we see him and we're in the car with the girls, we're like, say hi to Odin. And everybody's like, hi, Odin. The reason why that correlates to the third eye is because Odin, his story is that he gave up his physical eye so that he could be given the third eye, or the eye, all-seeing eye, this eye that can see the past and the future. And then he sees basically all of time through the third eye. And that's one of the things the third eye governs is time. And the guy just happens to look like Odin. And then in our work, we make Wednesday the day of the week that we honor the third eye. And Wednesday is named after Odin. It used to be called Woden's Day. And so now it's Wednesday, and so yeah, it's a whole third eye thing.
Is that why it's spelled so weird?
Yeah, Wednesday. It's like what?
It's so third eye of them.
Yes, exactly. It's wacky and it doesn't follow suit.
And it doesn't make necessary sense. Mm-hmm. But it does in a weird consciousness connection, whatever way.
Yeah.
So I'm.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's the days of the week. So, when I learned French, they're also connected to the planets. And Wednesday is mercredi, which is, sorry, French people, if I did that horribly. It's been a long time since high school.
You might get trolled by a French guy.
Oh, yeah, that's why the French guy.
It's also like, woo, swirly and all over the place. So, it fits.
Yeah, there's something with the days of the week, and we could go over those, but
that's a talk for another time, but there is something there.
Every chakra correlates with a different day, and they're kind of right on. It's very interesting.
They certainly grow on you. Mm-hmm. Initially, when we first started doing this work, all we did was we said, okay, well, let's make the first day of the week the root chakra, and then we'll spend the rest of the week working our way up towards the crown chakra. It just didn't feel right. It felt like it was not quite in alignment with the energies of the day. And so I started doing a little bit of research and realized, what are the days? I mean, because they all have their own names, and where do they come from? The Sunday and Monday are fairly straightforward. Sun day, right? About the sun. Moon day, Monday, like that. Those are pretty straightforward. But the other ones I had to do a little bit of digging to figure out what that was all about. And it was a lot of fun. I discovered a lot. And since we've incorporated that into our regular routine, there has been more synchronicity with the days of the week and the chakras than we had ever really anticipated. It's kind of fun.
It's kind of built in there, to be honest with you.
It's very much built in there. I mean, there's 7 days of the week, there's 7 chakras, there you go.
What were you going to say before I interrupted you with my horrible French?
I was just going to say, I'm Nicole Oman, and today I think what I'm bringing in... I am. Am I?
Is she?
I see the third eye as all of those things, but I also see it connected to our own inner psyche. And so today I might bring in some of how you can connect with your third eye and really connect with different aspects of yourself. And some of these aspects are hidden. The third eye really kind of likes to have hidden information, and it's also very connected to the subconscious. And when you start doing inner work or psychology, philosophy, whatever it is that you do to connect to yourself, to learn how to live in a better alignment with yourself, what you start to realize is the subconscious mind is doing more of your decision making than your conscious mind.
A lot more.
It connects with our patterns, conditioning aspects of ourself. So the more that you dive into your subconscious and unconscious mind, and really try to pull that to the surface, the more conscious choice you have to shift some of those old patterns of behavior that don't serve you anymore. They might have served you 10 years ago. They may have served you in your childhood. But if you are always in fight or flight because you had conditioned behavior that you needed to do that, and you don't want to do that anymore, you want to relax and really trust, you have to tap into those subconscious and unconscious parts of your psyche and the aspects. So I call them, and this is like not just me, this is a very much of the Carl Jung work, the archetypes, right? And we have all these different archetypes, and all of us are known to have 12. So we're talking a lot about numbers today. Seven days of the week, 7 chakras. Then we have the number 12 zodiac signs, 12 months of the year, right? So as we start to realize that we have these numbers, we pay attention to these different, the way that they correlate and the way they work together. But the 12 aspects of the self really kind of run the show. You can see them, and what's cool, just like the chakras, we can put certain things of your life into these buckets. You can really put these 12 aspects of the self and see kind of who's battling each other. You have many voices in your head, right? And the archetypes are a really beautiful way to gain a relationship to these different aspects, and then also be able to make different decisions based off of getting to know those aspects of, like, oh, my orphan is self-sabotaging me every time I go to do something that I want. Once you get to know that aspect of the self, you know who your self-sabotager or the self-saboteur is in your psyche, and then you'll be able to mitigate that once you have conscious awareness of what's going on behind the scenes.
It's almost like you have like a board of executives, right? There's like 12 people sitting at the board of executives, and you're the CEO. So you're standing at the head of the table. And each time one of these boards of executives
You're the 13th.
stands up, right? They kind of start to take the meeting over, right? And everybody kind of listens to that person. And there are some executives who speak up louder than others. So in other words, there's some archetypes that you lean towards more often than others. Some of them have less of a voice. Some of them have more of a voice. By getting to know these archetypes, you start to get to know aspects of yourself and what your tendencies are. Well, who do you lean upon to do, you know, when you get into an argument, which one of your archetypes likes to be in an argument? When you feel sad, which one of your archetypes like to take over that? When you feel rejected, when you feel happy, what are these archetypes usually embody some of these emotions, and then you put them on. It's also a mask that you put on in a group setting or in public with certain people. You behave a certain way. You are embodying that particular archetype for that relationship, because that archetype either thrives in that relationship, or, you know, feels like it has some sort of control over that relationship, or it feels like it is somehow connected to that person in some way. But it's less about how the relationships work than it is just being aware that you have these archetypes within you and that they can show up. Once you start to develop an awareness for them, then you can start, figuring out where the balance is and the relationships and all that. We won't need to get into all that today because we have 12 to go through. It's going to take us a while just to introduce you to them. So I think we'll start there. But I'm very fascinated because we really haven't talked about this before, Mimi, about how these archetypes are going to line up with the zodiac.
Yeah, that should be definitely interesting. So I'm paying attention, and I'll see what pops in it.
Yeah. Should we go forward? Do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start. So there are 12 archetypes, but they're broken up in 3 different groupings. The first grouping that you get with your archetypes, I call them the foundational 4. This is
The Fab Four.
The Fab Four. It's the foundational four. And the foundational four, we all have, they are all running. Every single person. I'm sorry. Yes, you have the foundational four running. So once we get through to the last ones, you may not have those running as much because those are the wisdom ones, depending on, what kind of life path that you have. But with the four of, we have them because these are the ones that are in our childhood. And so it's basically mom, dad, and two aspects of your inner child.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would say that just to extrapolate a little bit on these different subsections is that the foundational four kind of represents the youthful, right? So like you have like your maiden mother crone, right? Or your, what is it? The youth, what's the male version? The
youth father sage.
Youth
kind
father
of,
sage.
but not
No, it
really.
doesn't follow tight
No,
on that?
not really. Yeah, not
No.
really.
Okay. All right.
I'm like,
I digress. Go on.
I was like, I haven't really studied that as that. But I see them a little bit in the wisdoms. I don't see them, but I see them more like, yeah, okay, I can kind of get where you're picking up, where you're putting down. Yeah, so it is kind of like this foundational. The next grouping will be, and we'll get there, but the next grouping is definitely about like discovering who you are.
Yeah, more transitional.
It's a transitional, more energy, kind of the one that you live through most of your life of like figuring out who you are. And then by the end, we get to like the wisdom ones. But the first four is, the first one is called the innocent. And the innocent is your inner child. And it's the creative one. It's the one that has a sense of wonder, creativity, and obviously innocence. It's the pure nature that we have, the one that keeps us optimistic, the one that keeps us like wanting to create, learn,
grow,
yes,
explore,
and has this beautiful, and it's different than the Fool because we'll get to that one. It really just has, and I don't want to call it naivety, but it definitely has this like things are going to go right. It's the aspect of ourselves that if we want to get in touch with our creativity and our playfulness, this is the aspect that we want to go to.
It's the optimistic inner child.
Sounds very Leo.
Ah.
I was thinking that too.
Okay. All right. So yeah, very Leo energy. So why is that, Mimi?
I mean, there's various things. So there's like I can feel a little Sagittarius in here, like the optimist and all that. But Leo is really like that pure inner child energy where we can tap. Like if we want to tap into our creativity chart wise, Leo is definitely a place to tap into that. That's one of the highlights of Leo energy. It's very connected to the heart. I feel like heart energy is very innocent in its nature. So that's why I'm most associating it at this time with the Leo energy. And it's not to say that any of these archetypes can't connect with any other sign and that you can't relate to it as a sign. Just the essence of it is very Leo. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
good with that.
Fifth house energy. Totally fifth house energy. Right. So
house of Leo. So yeah.
Yeah. So very much like, yes, very innocent in nature.
Is that the house of Lannister?
The dark side of the innocent though is this, and it's not quite the orphan, we'll get there in a second. When the innocent isn't being paid attention to, a lot of times it's like, remember the movie Hook, where Peter Pan becomes Panning and like he's attorney at law. He's the lawyer and whatnot. Sometimes we forget to access this. And so when we don't access our inner child, weird things happen. Like we'll fall for no reason and have to be center of attention. Or we like the clumsiness, I think, comes from the if you're avoiding your inner child. I also think that like if you're not accessing your innocent as much as you need to, you also get in bouts of depression and you don't feel inspired in your life. So you need, if you're feeling a little dull, the innocent is something to really connect to. What is your inner child doing? What is that happy child doing? Do you need to create? Do you need to get back into a certain sense of like
the word that's dropping in
curiosity?
For me is wonder.
Wonder
And wonderful, right? Like being full of wonder, not just, oh, that's wonderful, but like that idea of like, oh wow, this is all new to me and I'm enjoying every bit of it.
And if you're getting clumsy, it's also your inner child needing a little attention. It's the one that will like pull on your, hey, mommy. Right?
What? I love you.
Yeah, that's kind of what it really just wants to say is like, hey, I love you. Pay attention to me. But the second aspect of your archetypes is called the orphan. Now, I call this one the wounded child. It doesn't necessarily have to stay childish. When I tap into my orphan, it goes into Maleficent. But that's also kind of innocent because it's Disney and da da da. I have a villainous kind of energy there. Misunderstood.
Yeah, it's definitely the more
misunderstood,
pessimistic side of the inner child.
So the orphan is really important because the orphan gets a bad rap, right? Because the orphan is where we felt rejected, denied, or suppressed in some way. But the orphan also can be the contrarian, where we talked about the contrarian before of it's the one that goes, hey, wait a minute, that's out of integrity, and we'll call it out, right? We'll call out what is not right for itself. Also, another thing with the orphan is that it holds our wounding. So a lot of times this is where our self-sabotaging behavior comes out. So because this came out for me yesterday, to be honest with you,
yeah. Yep.
When I don't feel heard or I feel misunderstood
or unsafe
or
uncared for
or unsafe. So everybody has an orphan. It just is where there is parts of us that feel unsafe.
It's a hard knock life for us.
But it's also our survivalist. It's going to help.
I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to defy the odds, and I'm going to be the orphan that becomes a billionaire because fuck the world, you know?
But the orphan is so important. If you're not listening to your orphan, you are going to completely feel like it's me against the world all the time. It can dip into the victimhood or the villain. Okay, I'm a victim. I'll be the villain then. Screw you guys.
Be right? The bad guy? Okay.
I'll be the bad guy. That's the orphan. So you got to pay attention to it because it's holding your wounding and has full access of going, do I want this part of myself to be fully victimhood all the time? Or do I need to parent it differently so it feels a little more safe?
Yep.
What do you think,
What do you think? What's the verdict on this?
Obvious. This is Scorpio.
Scorpio. Yeah, that makes sense.
Victim and those are all definitely Scorpio energies that can come through. So Scorpio / 8th house energy.
Very cool.
I kind of know what the next two are, but I'm going to see if Mimi's.
Yeah,
so far we're
on the same.
So far we're 2 and 2. Like that's what I thought.
Nice.
So I'm not saying anything. I'm making sure Mimi has it. I'm like, oh, Mimi's in it. So the next one is the warrior. So the warrior, I like to see this, and you can read it in other books, but this is the way that I've been working with these for a very long time in storytelling. I was an actor and all this stuff. So I've known these for a long time, and doing this work, the warrior to me is the inner masculine, your rudimentary inner masculine. So not maybe the enlightened inner masculine, but definitely your relationship with your father or the lack thereof.
Or in the archetypes, or not, sorry, the tarot, it would be like the knight.
It would be, it could be the knight, or the knight and a little bit of the magician, but no, you're right. It's knight energy. So the warrior, what the warrior does is it protects, right? So it's your inner protector. It's the thing that is going to stand up for you or not stand up
Pick
for
a
you.
fight with somebody if they don't agree with you.
Yes. And it's also connected very much to our egos. So this can be an energy where it will run out into battle and it will defend itself beyond all reason. And that's kind of when it gets out of alignment. The warrior gets out of alignment when it's just picking fights, or it gets too caught up in its ego, too caught up in this is who I am, and you know, like I'm going to tear everybody's head off if they don't if they don't believe in what I believe. So you'll see a lot of that bully like that on the internet. If you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to go after you. That's the warrior when it's off center.
I also see it as this energy of let's put our head down and just work hard and not pay attention to the other stuff, right? So in Western society, we have this thing where we feel like we have to be productive all the time and we have to drink copious amounts of caffeine so we can push through those low energy moments. That's that warrior energy. Like, come hell or high water, I'm going to get the job done. And I don't care. Nothing's going to get in my way. It's almost this juggernaut kind of an energy of like, just drink caffeine and go.
When it's healthy, however, it will stand up for us. It gives you healthy boundaries.
We'll get things done.
Getting things done. And it will also kind of be your biggest, like, come on, you got it. It's an encouraging energy. Not cheerleader like rah rah, like, no, you got it. You got this. I got you. I have your back. Let's go into battle. We have to get through this, right? And so having the warrior by your side in a healthy way, a lot of times when somebody has an overactive orphan, they need the warrior. Yeah. And sometimes they get kind of locked up on that. So the orphan be like, they're not like me against the world, and then all of a sudden the warrior comes in. But in a healthy way, when we're stuck in the innocent or the orphan energy, we need that warrior to go, yeah, I'm going to stand up for you because, you know, and that's here's the inner family, right? So here's your healthy, innocent inner child. Here's your orphan. And then the warrior has to stand up for those aspects of the self. So they work together a lot.
I see another Game of Thrones reference here, and that is the Hound and Arya. So if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, the Hound and Arya kind of are an unlikely pair, right? You got this big, gruff, kind of hates the world warrior character, and then you have Arya, who's literally an orphan. She's lost her family. She's unprotected, and she's mad at the world for it. And even though these two basically don't hate each other when they first meet, they learn to love each other, and there is this growth that happens. We just watched Wreck-It Ralph last night. Wreck-It Ralph is very much the warrior and the innocent. There's this relationship between these two archetypes that's pretty dominant in storytelling and in life.
All right, Beams.
I mean, it sounds like the quintessential yang energy, which is Aries.
Aries, yep. That's what I was thinking.
What Ryan was saying, like, get in there and get the job done and produce, that was a little Taurus-y. But everything else was, very strongly Aries. Like, I will stand up for you. I'll protect you. Aries energy rushing in, like, head first to whether it's protecting themselves or protecting you. That's very Aries energy. So
I also see Aries doing, like getting it done, just really putting that hard work into it.
Aries is willing to do hard work. Aries sometimes has trouble finishing. That's where the energy comes in. Because Aries will be like, oh, I have to rush and do this thing sometimes. So sometimes Aries can struggle. It depends how much Capricorn you have in your chart, right? It depends how many other archetypes you have in your chart to help you finish the job.
I mean, you're like describing me, Mimi, because I am a Taurus, but I'm on the cusp of Aries. So I'm a young Taurus, basically, and my moon sign is Capricorn.
Right? There you go.
So there you go. All right. Now there you go.
So the final one in the foundational 4 is the caregiver. This one's going to be obvious. It's the mama, right? So it's It's the mother energy, and it's your inner mother or your relationship that you have with your mother. The caregiver is the one that's going to nourish you, nurture you, kind of put the band-aids on the boo-boos, kiss you.
Sana que sana, corito de rana, se no sana hoy, se sana mañana.
If you have an overactive caregiver, however, what happens is we forget to care for ourselves. So a caregiver will give to everyone else, but forget to put that one on itself. And so then it will self-sacrifice, and it will deplete itself for the good of her family. Right. So you got to just be aware if you have an overactive caregiver. If you have an underactive caregiver, you're going to let that warrior take over, and you're going to be real hard on yourself.
Yeah, you're like, you do you, I take care of me.
Yeah. A caregiver, the caregiver energy is really beautiful because it's going to be able to be the one that helps you heal. That's what a caregiver does, right? It helps nourish you, make sure that you are fed, clothed, comforted, but it's also going to be the one, like I said, that kisses the boo-boos. When we are having a hard time, it's the one that kind of sits with us and is like, it's okay. You're okay. If you don't have that voice active and you're really hard on yourself, you need to establish a better relationship or allow yourself to listen to that voice a little bit more, because she definitely she's that inner mama in you. And if you had an overcritical mother, then this was a really beautiful one to heal with. You get to reparent yourself. And it's a really, when it's thriving in you, you can have a better, with the warrior and the caregiver, you can have a better self-esteem. But again, I always see the dark side of this one is if you have an overactive one, then you're not caring for yourself and you're over depleting and self-sacrificing. So
I see a physical similarity here. So if you have the warrior on one side and the caregiver on the other, I see the warrior as and I'm talking about the autonomic nervous system. I see the warrior as the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, right? And the caregiver is more of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, or the feed and breed. It's basically like go out and fight and then come home and take care of yourself. Go out and do what you need to do and then rest. And that dualistic energy, I think, feeds into these in the same way that the innocent and the orphan feed into each other, is kind of being almost a yin and yang energy against each other there. So there's a really cool, I don't just see these archetypes as islands. I see them as an archipelago that's like that they connect with each other, that they interact with each other a lot, actually.
There's also something in the Kabbalah that has those two. I think it's Gibora.
Separate, yeah.
Yeah, the Gibora is like go into battle, and the other one on the other side, I think it's Hesed, but it might be a different one. It might Hod, maybe. It's been a while. But it's mercy, and so it's like when I lay down my sword or when I pick it up is these two energies.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Mimi, what you got?
Cancer energy, and I always love this exact thing. My mom is a Cancer, and I watched this happen my whole life. My mom take care of everybody else, and it really hit her after my father died. She was, the biggest caretaker of my father. Loved him so much. She didn't, and truly still doesn't know how to take care of herself. So definitely really strong Cancer energy. And I always warn about that when we talk about Cancer energies, is learning to care for yourself and not just caring for everybody else. It's a huge thing in our world. So,
which is good, because we have a lot of selfish assholes out there who want to take care of everybody. So what we need to do is pull those caretakers a little bit more towards self-care, and take those selfish people and push them a little more towards being generous and taking care of others. And it's all about balance, really, is what it really boils down to.
Libra energy, it all comes down to the Libra.
So the people that are selfish, they probably need a little bit of mommying.
Mom doesn't love me. I'm going to go out and take over the world instead and step on people.
That sounds like a movie.
In storytelling and in biography, there is a lot of people who took over the world that had a major mommy issue.
Well, and that's why we call these the foundational four, right? Because the first two represent children, right? Different aspects of childhood, what it is like to be a child. Either you're like, yay, I love school, or I hate school, I don't want to go to school, right? It's this dualistic energy that childhood has. And then there's your parents, right? And it's like, let's go do things. Come on, I'm dad. Let's go build a fort, and then play catch. And then there's mom, who's like, okay, everybody, it's lunchtime. Everybody come in and relax. Now, obviously, these are kind of like
really
stereotypical things, but it's only just to illustrate the energy. It's less about like my mom was this or my dad was that. That's not the point. The point is that the energy of this matronly and this patriarch kind of energy, these things are should be working together, but sometimes they do work against each other.
Especially in our generation, there's a lot of divorce in the 80s and 90s especially. So
it sets that foundation for what the rest of your life is going to look like. Those four are going to really be running the show a lot under the surface in that subconscious we talked about earlier. And that is why being aware of these aspects of yourself is so important. Because once you realize that these guys are running the show behind the scenes, you can start to go, okay, let me give these archetypes a little bit more attention. Let me mature them and help them grow into this next phase of life, which is what the next 4 archetypes are all about.
So the next 4 archetypes, they call them the soul archetypes. And
soul archetypes.
And so the soul archetypes are kind of when we're starting to leave our parental figures, we're leaving childhood. So we're getting into a little bit of like adolescent to college age kind of energies.
Leaving the nest.
Right? So it's leaving the nest. But this doesn't just span that. What you're going to learn from these next 4 are going to kind of be with you the entire course of your life, because they're kind of cyclical in nature. They can be transitional. They can be ways of living too. So I'm going to say them, and we'll see how you kind of resonate, how they're working in your life, how maybe you were like, no, I'm domestic, I'm not going to do that one, right? So just notice which ones resonate that you know pretty well and that you've kind of built your life around, and ones that you don't have yet, which is fine as well. The first one of the soul archetypes is called the seeker. So the seeker is the energy literally of kind of moving out of childhood. And when we start going, well, who am I? What do I
also
want?
The person who gets the snitch.
No, that's true. A Harry Potter reference. Random.
Got to bring back to pop culture, y'all.
So the seeker is kind of trying to find itself. It's trying to gain knowledge. So it's that part of ourselves that go, okay, I am no longer like under my parents' supervision. I'm actually listening to the Will Smith book, and it reminds me so much of his mom wanted him so deeply to go to college and like go on that path, because that's the path that really took her out of being a poor Black woman and making her, this middle class, get her kids an education. Like really, education was huge for her. And he was being drawn to music and performance and all of this, and he had to go, Mama, I love you, that knowledge is what you needed, that's how you seeked to find yourself, but I need to seek to find myself as a performer. And he went on his journey. Worked out
okay for him.
It worked out okay. He made the right decision for himself. But that's the seeker energy. But we're seeking knowledge. It doesn't mean that because experience. It doesn't mean that because he didn't go to college, he didn't get the education he needed. He got his education. He just got it from the School of Life and Art. So it's the way that you choose to seek who you are is the seeker. It gains knowledge, experience, and the tools that it needs to succeed in its life. That's the seeker.
Gemini is what I see as the seeker.
You think so?
Okay, that's not where I was going, but that's cool.
No.
So why Gemini?
Well, Gemini, because I was actually thinking of me and Nicole, and in that story, because Nicole and I have talked about, like, neither of us have actually technically finished college, and yet between the two of us, we have, like, you could just fill the pages with how much we have learned, and we have sought out different ways of knowing ourselves, of experiencing the world, and use all of these things, all of these tools. I initially went to college as a dance major, and Nicole was doing like stuff with acting, and yet we bring these tools that we've learned in these other experiences to help us, like, be who we are, and I guess share that. So that's what I see is Gemini. I was feeling there's some Sagittarius in it.
That's where I was going.
I was feeling sad.
More where we like seek the knowledge and seek the new things, and Sagittarius is where we kind of tap into that knowledge and like bring it forth. So there's a thin line between these oppositions between Sagittarius and Gemini. And at first, when you said the seeker, I did feel Sagittarius, but as you went on, I was like, really, Gemini is known as like the jack of all trades, because Gemini goes and like gathers these things and it's like, all right, this is, put this patch on, here's me. Put this patch on, here's me. And so, yeah, it kind of felt more Gemini to me.
What did you have, babe?
I had Sag.
Okay.
But
we'll see how it plays out as we get through some of the other archetypes, because we might end up shuffling the cards.
Or it might be a little bit of both, like the dualistic nature.
So you said Sag and Gemini are in opposition?
Yes, and any signs that are in opposition, a lot of times they're more similar than they are different. So, and there's balance to them. Like Gemini really is, I mean, both Sagittarius and Gemini are like, feed me when it comes to knowledge. Like both of them want to know. And it's kind of in different ways. But the seeker is, it just felt more Gemini, like, I'm going to explore a little this and explore a little that. Meanwhile, explore is definitely goes hand in hand with Sagittarius. So again, there's like, I'm feeling both, but I
she might be right, because I know what's to come.
Okay.
And now that she's saying
no peeking.
I know, but now that she's
no
telling me why she thinks that it's more Gemini, I can see how it would be, because how she describes Sagittarius, I see another one in the future that is probably more Sag. Cool. So I think she might be right on this one. So
right. I defer to the experts.
You won me over. Okay,
Gemini just reflected the Gemini back to you.
Like we do.
Echo.
So once we like really get to know the self, the next one is the lovers. The lovers is when, now that we know ourselves in a certain
lover, right?
The lover, but the lovers, it does do a two thing a little bit, just because it is getting to know yourself in mirror image, but it doesn't have to be like that, in a relationship with another.
Right.
So it's not just mirror, it's in relationship with another.
How do you get to know yourself through the eyes of another person? Through relationship? Like,
and who are you based off of, like, okay, now you know yourself, and this is, I mean, I know I've been through it. Like, I'm going to go off and go backpack through Europe and blah, blah, blah. Then I came home, met him. So now I figured out who I am. But now what does that mean? What does it mean for me to have my, experiences and things like that? How am I in relationship? Am I somebody who is the nurturer? Am I somebody who is the, like, what, you learn so much about yourself when you're in relationship with others. And so that's what the lover is seeking to do. The lover also seeks to kind of get what it needs through attraction, law of attraction, if you will.
Instead of going out like the seeker, you're drawing in.
You're drawing in.
You're magnetizing.
It's a little semi more feminine. It could go either way, just depending on how you.
Feminine energetically, not feminine as in male, female.
Yeah, it's a little bit more balanced, masculine and feminine wise, just because it has both energies to it, and it learns from both. It also seeks for romance. Sometimes, like the finer things in life, it likes to have. It's a little bit romantic in thinking. It's like a rom-com kind of energy, but it could be also a romantic tragedy, like
kind of dramatic.
It's dramatic, But yeah, so it's definitely the aspect of our self, uh, of our relationship sector. And that's really important. Me and Ryan have even decided to work as lovers. So me and Ryan
Don't
are
do it.
we're Ryan and I are very connected with the lovers archetype because we have like literally decided to do like everything as the lovers.
Yeah. And that means it's like what Nikki and I like to use our work. The analogy we use is like you're climbing. We live in Colorado, and one of the big things people talk about in Colorado is 14ers, which just means that it's 14,000 feet or above to get to the top of the mountain. And people like to hike up mountains. And so there's a lot of 14ers, and that's a big accomplishment. And so what we like to say is that we're hiking a 14er in a 3-legged race. So we basically like grabbed a hold of each other, tied our legs together, and like, let's hike this 14er while we're connected.
We're either going to survive or kill each other.
There we go.
So
I think you're doing a beautiful job.
Thank you. We've worked hard to become so.
So what do you
Right?
think, Ming?
Where we at?
It's interesting. I mean, technically in astrology, Libra represents love, relationship. So it's Libra. It had some other essences in there. But definitely Libra can be dramatic, guys. Libra can be dramatic.
I know a lot of Libras.
Right? Yeah. And it's ruled by Venus. And some of the things when you're like, likes the finer things, it's very Libra. It can also be a little Taurus, but definitely Libra rules relationship and that the balance of getting to know somebody. Libra is relationships, whether it's romantic or any other kind of relationship, even your relationship with you, that is Libra energy.
Yeah, and I feel like the Libras that I know anyway have this ability to counteract their partner. They have this like counterbalancing maneuver. So if the partner's like really gregarious and outgoing, they kind of become introverted. And if it's the other way around, then they kind of, you know, if their partner is a little more introverted, then they become the extrovert. And like, it's almost like they feel the imbalance and they feel this necessary urge to take the opposite role so that there is balance.
I think any of the air signs have some kind of ability to do that. I have a lot of air. I have a lot of Libra, and I definitely find myself between my Gemini rising and my Libra, like, who am I in this relationship? What kind of air am I bringing here? So absolutely, Libras can do that.
Cool. Awesome. So we are what? We're 5 for 6?
Yeah, but yeah.
She won you over on the
Yeah. I see both though,
That's
right?
Cool. That's pretty good. That's not bad. We're halfway there. That's pretty darn good.
So the
Everybody
next,
take a big deep breath. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves a snack. Okay, intermission's over. Let's move on to the 7th archetype.
So the 7th archetype is the destroyer. So now that we have certain things going on in our lives, we know who we are in a certain sense, and we also know now we've got some relationships under our belt, if you will. Now we need some change. And so when we need change in our life, when things have gotten stagnant, the inner destroyer will come out, right? So the inner destroyer is that part of ourselves that go, I'm not feeling it. Like I'm not feeling really satiated. I don't like this job. It doesn't feel like me anymore. And I need to let something go.
Like that moment in Office Space where they take the copy machine out into the field and they beat it with baseball bats while they're listening to gangster rap. It's like,
that's the destroyer.
Yeah, that's the destroyer.
The destroyer also is very much kind of like a Kali Ma energy, right? So our inner destroyer can be very destructive. If you have some trauma in your life and you have that thing, this is where the like kind of shadow aspect comes in, where you have that thing where everything's peaceful, then you have to have some sort of chaos. And so you kind of can you can kind of like get idle hands and kind of like want to start like changing things or breaking things up or whatever. That can be destructive in your life in a negative way. But when it's healthy and balanced, the destructive energy will keep you from getting into a rut and also getting you into a sense of not living. A lot of us get really comfortable in our misery, and we don't want to change things because we don't want to go through a divorce, or we don't want to go through a job change, or we don't want to go through a move, or whatever that is that's keeping us stuck. And so sometimes the destroyer comes out, maybe internally we get self-destructive, but sometimes it comes in as a tower card. So I know that sounds weird. Your psyche comes out externally. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you'll pull it in, right? There's something not going on. So all of a sudden, boom, you get fired, or boom, your partner cheats on you, and then you have to get a divorce, or whatever it might be, right? So
Doesn't let you get stagnant.
it doesn't let you
Likes
get
to stir
stagnant.
the pot.
It's definitely, it gets a bad rap because nobody really wants to go through that uncomfortable thing that happens to get you kind of stimulated into a new thing. But it's that transitional piece that sometimes we need, those years that you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what the hell?
I see this as like, if it's underactive, you can be really complacent. You can find this kind of comfy, cozy niche in your life and just be like, I'm going to dig in like a tick and stay right here. And then the destroyer will come along and pluck you out of that comfort zone. Now, obviously, if it's overactive, this is like that cut and run mentality, like somebody who's constantly getting into new relationships or a new job and just burning the bridge because they just have to constantly be transitioning or changing or moving forward, and they can't be locked down. So that's the example of the destroyer being overactive or underactive.
You can't put me in a box. Actually, more so than an actual sign, this feels like the planet Uranus, which rules Aquarius. So I was Uranus. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and that's why I was like, you can't put me in a box. There were multiple other signs, like it could definitely have, shades of Scorpio in there, right? Sure. So definitely that. Virgo, I look at as the archetype of the healer, and I was kind of waiting for that. I was like, is the flip side of the destroyer the healer? It's like, hey, something here isn't working and we need to heal it, so we need to destroy it to heal it. So I was like kind of listening for that. But the overall feeling that I got was Uranus. Like, Uranus is what happens. Uranus was my partner Joe's car accident. Uranus was on his Chiron, actually, when that happened. Uranus brings in that sudden change, that sudden job loss, that sudden your partner cheating, your house burns up, like whatever.
Your whole neighborhood.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's super strong Uranus energy. It's meant to liberate us. It's meant to help us evolve and shift. And it's definitely not afraid to trigger us, destroy stuff, any of that. I call Uranus and Pluto my superhero planetary agents of change. And
yeah, I'm going through my own personal Uranus thing right now.
Yeah, Uranus and Taurus.
So I've come up with my special gratitude wave to Uranus, and it looks like this. Thank you, Uranus. I really appreciate you.
Aww.
You're number one.
So much.
It's so hard, but it's so necessary. And when you're in it, you're like, this is the worst thing ever. But when you look back at it, you're like, oh, I'm so grateful for that period of my life. It's just
that's
when
very
you're
true.
In it is
that's
really
very
tough.
true. In hindsight, though, that destroyer energy, you're sometimes like, F you, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting me out of that shitty relationship. Thank you for getting me out of that shitty job I hated. Right. So, but when it was happening, I'm like, right. So I think you hit that there. Yes. Aquarius is a little wonky, but like Uranus, it's very
Uranus. It's exactly Uranus. Yeah. So that's
where
things that are interesting. But I missed what you said.
I said Uranus can be a real asshole.
Oh, it really is. It stinks. And yet, don't we all feel better after we poop? Like, really?
Oh, there's a great joke that we got during the journey of ascension that somebody gave us, and it was like this. It's this whole joke about how there's the brain thinks it's in charge because it runs all the mechanisms and it does all the thoughts. And then, the heart thinks it's in charge because it's running all the blood and all that stuff. The stomach thinks it's in charge because it's making all the energy and blah, blah, blah. And all these different body parts are arguing who's in charge. And then the asshole chimes up and goes, hey, I'm in charge, everybody. And everybody laughs. They're like, ha ha, no, you're not. And then the asshole shuts it down and won't let any poop out. And then everybody starts to get a little woozy. The brain starts not working. The stomach starts to cramp up. The heart starts to beat faster. And they're like, okay, you're in charge.
That's Uranus right there.
There it is.
Uranus is always happy to be the butt of the joke.
That's kind of funny. They are actually. So then the next one, if you have a destroyer, you need a creator. And the reason why the destroyer does what it does, so it can create something new. And so it has to make room. It has to clean it up. It is the fire. So the new growth can come out, the new seeds can burst and things happen. So the creator energy, the creator archetype is very much connected to your ideas. Now that you have the seeker, the lover, you cleared out what no longer serves, you can take those skills, knowledge, and experience that you got from the seeker, and you can start creating something of your own. So this is when we go off and go, okay, what do I want to create? I want to create a family. Okay. Or I want to create a business, or I want to create
a 49-day meditation program.
Whatever, right? I want to write a book. So this is taking all of those things that and you start taking action on them to create either a life that you want, a process, a program, or a product that you're wanting, or a person. You can like, this is very, it's very pregnancy. It's very, okay, I get to create a human being.
Yeah, it's very Mother Earth, Gaia. It's the part of the mom energy that's pre-mom. It's like, I haven't become a mom yet. I don't think it is nurturing. There is a nurturing aspect.
There's a nurturing aspect.
But not like the caretaker.
They have to nurture.
It's more like a nurturing, like the little thing. It's like the new. I feel like it's more of the new life, whereas the caretaker is more of like life in general. We're taking care of life in general. This feels more specific to new growth. It's
what they want to build, right? So it's like you have to nurture your efforts. You have to nurture. She's got something in my nose. But just the word creator, you guys know what creation is. You guys know what creating something is. That's what this archetype is. And so I have a friend that just kind of got into her creator. She was like in that stagnant energy. And it's like, now that she's trying to embody her creator, she's like, oh my God, I'm having to destroy things. So the creator and the destroyer can be working together when you start. So you can flip-flop those two. The creator can happen and then the destroyer, and they can kind of work in tandem together. And it's really good when they do work in tandem together, because it does remind me of when you do get pregnant and you start to realize, oh my God, I have 9 months to like
get my life together.
Get my life into a different.
I also see, if you guys are familiar with Fantasia 2000. It was the Disney animated Fantasia series that they did in 2000. And there's a sequence where there's Mother Gaia, this Mother Earth kind of angelic being is flying around and looking at how beautiful nature is and taking in everything. And then there's a volcanic eruption that turns into a wildfire. And the whole forest that you see in the beginning is decimated and absolutely destroyed. And then this giant, beautiful Mother Earth kind of Gaia energy comes out as this tiny little, like barely alive energy. And then she starts to like connect to the earth again. And then rain comes, and then life starts to come back out from the devastation and destruction. And it ends up, by the end of the sequence, it ends up actually being more vibrant and more beautiful and more life than there was previously. So it's this death and rebirth kind of a cycle that these two creator and destroyer energies play with each other. This constant flux of life.
Yeah, and that's also in those that are kind of like Shiva and Kali, or like this creative destructive force that keeps like us moving, keeps us growing and evolving. So
fresh,
yeah. So okay, names creator.
Right. Well, the creator energy, the mother Gaia energy, that's all very Taurus-y. I also felt waves of Virgo in there, but Taurus energy is also ruled by Venus. Besides Libra being ruled by Venus, Taurus is also ruled by Venus and brings that kind of like creative, I can bring art forward kind of energy. So I was definitely feeling, and especially with some of the imagery, definitely feeling Taurus. I actually feel like, and some astrologers believe this, not all, but I actually believe that Taurus actually rules the earth, or earth rules the sign of Taurus.
That's how I learned it. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely connects to that energy as well. But could the creator also be kind of like the healer on the flip side? Because that's where I was like, I could feel like the little Virgo energy in that as well. Like on the converse of the destroyer, like here we come in and nurture and heal. And this is one of the things with astrology. Like there's a lot of different like little areas.
Nuances.
Yeah, nuances where we can pull, these similar energies. And so it's not just like 2 + 2 is 4,
Right. Well, and so every one of these archetypes and every one of these zodiac signs, they all have a masculine and a feminine side to them. And the masculine kind of represents as what we learned from a therapist we once worked with as a waffle. Right. So there's these little compartments, and masculinity wants to create these little compartments. Okay, there's 12 archetypes and there's 12 astrological signs. So
Here's the
this sign needs to fit with this sign, and this sign needs to fit with this sign. So then the feminine is more like spaghetti. It's like, well, this sign feels a little bit like this sign, but it also feels kind of like this one, and it connects to this one, and it looks like that. And
that's
like,
the trines and the oppositions and the things.
Yeah. So there's all this like, basically you have to take your waffle and then you have to throw some spaghetti on there, and then we have
Buddy Veil.
And then we have Buddy Veal.
Sprinkles and chocolate syrup and definitely.
Yeah. Does syrup have sugar? Then yes.
Yeah, I could see both. I could see Taurus, and that's kind of where I would go with it. But I see Virgo too, because Virgo is the Virgin Mary, Virgin Mother, right? So she creates like from herself, like, and there's a lot of that kind of creator. So
I think I lean towards the Taurus more because of the nurturing aspect. There's like almost this like nurturing of this small thing, and
with creation, you gotta like kind of dig in, work hard.
Yeah, like tilling the soil. There's a kind of tilling the soil thing, which is a very bold thing to do.
Yeah.
Let's put the yoke.
Okay, digging in.
Virgo does that to you.
Let's yoga that bowl.
There's shades. I lean more towards the Taurus in this, but the Virgo has its place in it as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So
okay.
Those are the 4 kind of transitional. What was the word you used? Was it transitional?
Yeah, they're transitional. They're
archetypes.
Called the
soul archetypes. So they're the ones who kind of help you get from point A to point B. And now we're going to move into the point B category, which is
they're the wisdom ones. They're called the in the books that I've read, they call them the 4 archetypes of the self, the big S, like of the bigger self, right? I call them my personal self. Yeah, I call them the wisdoms. So the reason why I call them the wisdom archetypes is because you need to like have gone on this journey, if you will. You need the foundation. You need to do it. You need to go on and
earn them.
Yeah,
they don't just drop in.
This comes back to that what he was talking about, the maiden mother crone and the youth father sage. These next 3 archetypes are very much the culmination of the wisdom of these. So the first one is called the magician. So the magician, or the high priestess, is what I call it, because there's a masculine, feminine energy of this. So the magician is kind of the embodiment of what the youth or the maiden can know. Right. So once you kind of have gone through a lot of your seeking, you got your tools, you got all of, your knowledge, then you can start connecting to the higher aspect of the self, and you start to kind of will your will into the world, as above, so below kind of thing. In the priestess, it's slightly different, but they are very much connected. It's the masculine and the feminine aspect of this archetype. The priestess sits in between the physical world and the spiritual world and connects to the intuitive mind instead of the rational mind, the third eye.
Oh, we were talking about the third eye today. I almost forgot. Go ahead.
Well, these are all aspects of your psyche. So they do tie in. This is all here. This is what's going on behind the scenes in your subconscious. So once you have access to either your magician, who also has, like, he's going to will what's on the other side into the earth. That's why in the tarot, he's pointing up and pointing down. Like I
thought it was because he was staying alive.
He is staying alive.
Oh, okay.
And he has all the tools on the table, and he has the infinity on it above his head. This is very much, he's connected to the higher wisdoms and bringing it to earth. And the priestess does the same thing. It's not as masculine. It's a little bit more like, she can be the counselor a little bit, like, or the psychic or the medium or the priestess, right? Like,
or even the witch, because it's got this kind of like, I see this imagery of this cauldron, because like the masculine's like, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this here. That waffle brain thing, right? Whereas the feminine's more like, okay, I think I need a dash more of this, and I need a dash more of nightshade, and now I need put a little bit of frog's eye in there. And it's the same thing. They're conjuring. They're both conjuring. They're manifesting, which is, kind of the more hip word for conjuring. But it's basically one of them is doing it through this force of will, and the other one is doing it through this more like holding space and allowing it to happen.
Yeah, very much so. But the main thing with these two is they have access. This is the first point of access to the non-logical, the intuitive mind, the higher self, the higher intuitions, and also the connection to the lower worlds or the physical worlds, creative worlds. And they're kind of sitting at this bridge and learning how to kind of manipulate both energies to hopefully the highest and greatest good, but you can also do it in negative ways too. It's all about intention.
Level. And that's why you got to earn these higher levels of the archetypes, because when you get into these higher levels, intention becomes really important. And if you don't take the time to set an intention, or if you set a destructive intention or a malicious intention, then you can very easily use these energies to do that.
And you also build karma.
That's a whole discussion for another day.
But yes, so that's the high priestess and the magician archetype. What do you think?
All right, so this is interesting. So initially, I was thinking kind of Pisces, but I was really feeling more so like the Pisces Virgo polarity in this, because Pisces can often be like, no, here I am out in the dream world. Like Pisces, I don't know if this is one of the archetypes, is definitely like the mystic, right? But we need somebody to bring it down. And you were like, hey, the magician, right? Like staying alive. That's the Virgo energy. Virgo has the ability, in tandem with Pisces, as you see in Nicole, to take from the higher realm and bring it in. And I actually, again, I might change my mind after I hear everything, but I almost feel this is more Virgo than it is Pisces, because you have to open up your third eye as a Virgo. You have to engage your Pisces as a Virgo to do this. But this is Virgo's ability, is to bring the magic here.
I actually think that you're onto something, Meme. I really do think that Virgo Pisces, because it doesn't feel full Pisces and it doesn't feel full Virgo.
But I love the
you
fact
put
that
them together and you're like,
and it's like, here it is.
Back to these polarities, these opposite ends of the zodiac are working together a lot in this, which I find to be really cool.
Well, and I don't know, after I explain the other ones, we might see a little bit of a polarity duality thing, because 100%. Most of them have two right now. Well, I put two in them. It's the masculine line that they do the archetypes. I put the feminine one in it because I'm like,
but
it's a little
each one
different.
of these archetypes could definitely have a masculine and a feminine side.
Should have a masculine and feminine.
They're just a little more obvious up here.
Like the magician is so Virgo though, to like be able to focus. The magician, I think, what is it connected to in tarot? Is it Gemini? Is the magician? I don't know.
I think it's Aries. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Otherwise,
I thought Aries was the fool, but sorry, Aries. But that's what I always look at with Aries. But with the magician, one of the gifts of Virgo is the gift of focus, and I think that's the gift of the magician. Is like,
absolutely.
Hey, this thing that I see, I'm focusing on it to bring it into this world. And again, that's a very strong Virgo trait. Like Virgo, hocus pocus, use your focus.
Focus. I like that.
I like that too.
That's a good one.
And then the High Priestess is kind of Piscean. So there's there's a lot going on there. Yay.
Cool.
Okay, so the next one would be, and I know what this one is. So the next one is basically the mother and father archetype at its fully expressed, and it would be the ruler or the emperor and empress, right? So it would be, they call it the ruler, but I also like to call it the emperor and empress because I do tarot and I know the next set, and the next set would be these two energies together. This is where we, again, have all of our knowledge, our wisdom, and our experience, but instead of like willing it into the world, now we sit on the throne,
dictate,
and we have a lot of friggin' responsibility. We have to dictate, and so we have to sit. We can't always, yes, we can go out in the fields and work with the people, but we're better served with our knowledge to delegate, to kind of mediate, and also discern. So there's a lot of energy around, okay, you need this, you need that, you need to go there.
Upper management. It
is a very much upper management. It also needs to dictate punishment when needed, right? So it needs to be extremely, it could be fair. It is some Libra energy here, but it has to, it's very discerning, and it has to, like, a good ruler keeps everybody in mind and everybody in regard, but it has to sit it's the one sitting in the center going, okay, this is where everything goes.
And I have a unique perspective of the rulers, because a lot of times I think people see like Game of Thrones and all these shows about like monarchies, and they assume that the king rules the land. And in a certain sense that is true, but that's coming from a democracy mentality that we have in this day and age. But the truth is that a good ruler is actually a servant to the people. A good ruler is actually there to do the job of making decisions for that kingdom. And that's why the archetype of King Arthur comes to mind when you talk about the ruler, because we don't know if he was a real person or not, but we certainly know the idea of King Arthur, this idea that he is going to collaborate. He's going to use the skills and the expertise of the people around him to be a better ruler.
Because he can't do it.
It's not about him. And that's why Camelot and Arthurian legend is so prominent in our culture to this day, is because it's not about Arthur, and it's not about it's about Camelot. Arthur created something and was a servant to Camelot. And that ruler has the power to invoke punishment and give reward, but it also has the responsibility of caring for its kingdom.
Is a lot of responsibility. This is why I see it as like the emperor and empress, or the highest form of the mother and father, because now it's not just the mother and father of their family. They are basically the mother and father of the land.
And if you fall into the overactive aspect of this, that's the tyrant. Right. Yes. That's the person who's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do because I got control. But then you can fall onto the underactive side of this archetype, which is the kind of like Nero, right? This like ruler who basically just doesn't care and just is going to be living in luxury and debauchery and taking advantage of everything without actually doing any of the responsibilities.
There's also another one that keeps popping up, is the new Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, the king that is pretty much the king, the entire Viserys.
Yeah, that poor guy. He was trying so hard to keep his kingdom together that it literally killed him.
It ate him alive. So,
more Game of Thrones.
But what I would say with the ruler, it's a hard archetype to really stay in balance with. That's why you need the other ones, but you definitely need the inner ruler, because it does need to be the one that like really takes responsibility, sits on the throne, is able to discern the responsibility where it needs to.
Yeah. What you got, Memes?
Capricorn.
Ah, yeah.
Capricorn. One of the key phrases of Capricorn is the phrase responsibility. So definitely Capricorn energy, and Capricorn can definitely be more of that like patriarchal fatherly energy, which can go, with the ruler, although we can bring in that emperor, empress with that as well. So yeah, Capricorn energy, loud and clear. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, okay.
I was like, I know this one. As soon as I was like, oh, the ruler. That's like Capricorn. Capricorn's like, oh, you guys think you're in charge? Well, guess who's delegating everything? So, but I'm in charge, guys.
If you ever tried to look back like when we had to like work in teams in like high school or in work situations, the Capricorn will be in charge. Like know your signs. Know the signs.
Really interesting. LeBron James is a Capricorn, and one of his nicknames is King James. Oh. And he very much has that like, this is my show kind of an energy, but he's also like, I have to make sure that everybody in the team is working well, because I can't win this by myself. I need everybody. So he kind of embodies that Capricorn ruler energy very much so.
Very interesting. Cool.
So the next one would be, if we did, made a mother crone here, it would be sage or crone. In the archetypical books, they call it the sage, but I'm like, we got to give the crones. And it's a little different for a man and a woman to age. And so what this archetype is literally the wisdom of life experience. You cannot have your sage or crone if you have not aged, because this is the wisdom of life itself. It's the wisdom of like the pitfalls of aging, losing the energy that you used to have as your youth, the grief that you go through. The sage and the crone have been through massive amounts of successful moments in their life, but also just the same amount of failures, disappointments. And so they have this beautiful wisdom and understanding of how life is, either good or bad.
Yeah, there's this energy of acceptance. This is just the way it is. And I think that when this sage energy is overactive, it's like, I know how it is. You have to listen to me because I have the wisdom, right? And then when it's underactive, it's like, oh my God, my whole life is behind me, and I'm sad and depressed and lonely, and everyone I know has died. And it's like this regret of life and this like arrogance that you know it all, and the balance is in the middle when you're just like, you know what, honey, that's life. And I see very much this like
Will Smith's Gigi.
Yeah, well, yeah, or
Will Smith's grandmother,
the Oracle, in the Matrix series. Remember, so they had that wonderful like kind of like matronly elderly woman who was baking cookies, and she's trying to give him like his.
You're just waiting for something.
Yeah, like he's you know, it's this wonderful like knowing. It's just knowing. It's the embodiment of knowing.
So, are you going to say anything else?
Go ahead.
Okay. Embodiment of knowing. Okay, so again, I'm feeling two signs here. Sagittarius is known as the know-it-all. Like, definitely, we have a Sagittarius here. We have a Sagittarius rising here. So Sagittarius can be the know-it-all, but Sagittarius is where we've like kind of like, my wisdom comes from like experience. It also can feel like the acceptance, so it can also feel kind of like the Pisces energy again of like, I've been through the highs, I've been through the lows, like this is kind of what life is. And so I'm feeling like a hybrid of the Sagittarius Pisces in this energy. But the know-it-all, like if you go over into that Pisces, let's be fair, any of the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, can bring the know-it-all. We know it all from different sectors. Each one of those signs. So, which the three of us bring many of those signs right here. So all four technically. So, but yeah, I do when it comes to like the sage. Sagittarius is like the sage, right? Like it's the sage, it's the sage. So I'm leaning towards Sagittarius, but again, it's a Sagittarius hybrid with Pisces. What do you feel?
I feel the same way when you said about that could be the Sag or Gemini, and you're like, well, it comes from within, like they know. Like I'm like, okay, that is probably a little bit more Sag.
Yeah,
would be that. So I agree with you, and I'm really curious to see what you think the last one is.
Yes, I'm curious too.
Because I think you might be in between, and I think I know which one I might go towards more, just because of the houses. Anyway.
The final archetype. So
it's the Fool. So the Fool is what I call the wisdom of the present moment. In the state of the tarot cards, it's the 0. So the Fool doesn't know the past. It doesn't know the future. It only stays here and now and can only navigate with what it has right here. It is the power of now.
Instincts.
It is instincts. It is just trust. And so this one's kind of an interesting one because it's the beauty of the beginner, but it also knows all as well, right? So if it stays completely present and in the moment, it has everything it needs, whether it be resources, money, food, and the knowledge or whatever it needs in the moment. It's very much, it kind of makes me feel like Slumdog Millionaire and very much even Neo.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump is
Forrest Gump.
For sure.
Forrest Gump. You step on shit and you end up in gold. And what's cool is this also brings up some more of these partnerships. And basically, if the sage is the knowing, then the fool is the not knowing.
The unknown, yes.
It's the known versus the unknown. And you cannot go on any journey. You cannot take
You're
any
right.
steps
It's not
forward.
knowing. It's like
you can't do anything without embodying your fool. Nobody would do anything. We would all sit still because everything involves risk. Every step you take involves some form of risk, and the fool don't care. The fool's going to go no matter what the risk because they don't consider the risk. They don't weigh out their options. They just go.
Definitely could be Pisces, right? Like this is very Pisces energy. It's the bridge of Pisces to Aries, I think. But it's so funny because I reposted a video on Instagram stories the other day, and it was like a vase kind of that had fish swimming in it, and the cat is drinking the water, and there's the fish swimming right up to the cat, like what's this thing? That's so Pisces, like to be like that. And I captioned it, Pisces, the fish, right? Because it's so Pisces. Pisces is just in the moment. It's like, I get what I need in the moment. Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. And I always say Pisces, people who are Pisces, I don't necessarily look at it linear, like you are the oldest sign of the zodiac. I don't really look at it like that. But Pisces does have access as a sign to all the other signs, to all the other information, to all the other energies.
So fool.
So, yeah, right?
Because
exactly.
I see the fool permeating all these archetypes. Because basically you won't step from one archetype to the next. You won't step from one part of the journey to the next without embodying the fool. The fool is the only thing that will make you take that leap of faith. And so I do see the fool permeating the rest of the archetypes. So if the Pisces does the same with the zodiac, it just seems perfect to me.
Yeah, it definitely does that. And it's like I said, it's that bridge though as well, because I do feel like sometimes Aries can be that fool, because sometimes Aries can still be in that moment, like diving in, like here I go, and not necessarily thinking about their safety or thinking about anything else.
Right, and it's the 0 and the 1, right? That binary thing. Yeah. Like you said, there was that transition from Pisces to Aries. It's almost like between the two in a weird way.
It is. It feels very between the two, and Pisces is basically, when we go to, it's the end of the zodiac. It's when we go to God. So when we go back to heaven, we've had all the life experience, and Aries is here when we come back in. And both are so close to like that soul essence, because one's going, one's coming. And so it is like that, right there in the middle kind of energy. But if I had to lean towards one, it's definitely Pisces. Pisces in its highest essence.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I know
Just
Nikki's taking notes right now, so she's basically taking all of the archetypes and combining them with all of the signs.
Yeah, I want to see if we have everybody. So hold on.
I think we definitely
got
covered
everybody.
everybody.
I mean, some of them were the hybrids, like, like the Virgo and the Sagittarius, whatever. But yeah, we got Aquarius was the destroyer. I mean, I could go through probably remember.
Well, yeah, I just did it. So the innocent is Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Orphan would be Scorpio. Warrior is Aries. Caregiver, Cancer. Some of them were easy. Seeker would ultimately Gemini. Destroyer, Aquarius.
You skipped lover.
Lover, Libra, sorry. Destroyer, Aquarius. Creator, Taurus. Magician, Virgo. Ruler, Capricorn. Sage. Will be Sag.
The Sagittarius.
Is the Pisces.
And the full Pisces.
It feels right to me. I mean, again, these things aren't hard set lines. None of it is. And I think we would be foolish to believe that we can sort of categorize life in such distinct ways. But the categories give us context, and then we can start
Waffle brain it.
Yeah, and then we can start to mix and match and play with colors, right? Because there's red and there's blue, but when we mix them together, we get purple. And then we, depending on how much red we have, we might go towards magenta, and depending on how much blue we have, we might go more towards indigo. So we get to play with these colors and play with these archetypes by seeing nuance. But first and foremost, we have to just recognize them as aspects of the psyche. And I think what we need to do now is just pull all this back into this third eye thing and why it is that we use this during the third eye.
So the reason why, like I said, it will give you full-on access to what is going on unconsciously and subconsciously through your day, and who's popping out when you're like, why did that come out of me right there? Yeah. Jesus, what is that? Why did I do that? Yeah. Well, then you can look back at this list, listen to our thing, write some notes, and go, oh, that was that. Okay. And once you start to realize, we just did an entire workshop that was based on these guys. And we literally took them into like the Encanto house of like doors. Yes. Right. And so we opened up their doors and we had them meet every single one of their archetypes. And to be honest, when you consciously think about them, you would be like, oh, this is what this one looks like. But when you open that door, I went, oh.
Yeah, you never really know what's back there. What's really cool about, so Nikki brought up the fact that in retreat, we kind of took this information and embodied it, right? Well, what we did was we distilled our retreat down into a guided meditation, which is the third eye activation in our chakra activation series. So basically, during the third eye activation, have you done it yet, Mimi?
No, I'm sorry. I have had
busted. So the third eye, well, now you should do it, because what
now you're already semi-activated.
Yeah, the third eye chakra activation basically pulls you through all 12 of these archetypes, and it helps you to initiate each one of them, basically bring them online so that you're aware of them and that their energy is fully accessible for you, and that you can now start to cultivate a relationship with
that, because they're already running the show in some capacity, and some of them are running the show and you have no clue what they're doing. Like, they are in their little thing and they are working their magic and they are running your life. Yeah. And when you go, okay, there's somebody in that door that's been running my life for 10 years. I need to knock on that door and go, what are you doing? And when you have access to that part of your psyche, then you can start to work with it. Then it's not kind of self-sabotaging you when you don't want to self-sabotage, or feeling embarrassed, like the lover. Oh, I am embarrassed through my lovers. Like, oh my God. Okay, well, go in there and like build your confidence there. There's different ways to mature them. There's different ways to nurture them. There's different ways to work with them. And the reason why it comes into the third eye is because we're literally wanting you to take these aspects of your psyche, instead of thinking you're schizophrenic, and having like a really beautiful, conscious relationship with these aspects, so that your life starts to work in harmony in alignment with what the 13th aspect, the hidden aspect is you.
The CEO.
It's
And
the CEO.
it's really interesting that Nikki brings up the schizophrenia, right? Because first of all, when you're doing this work, you think you're crazy. The more deep you go into this work, the more crazy you feel.
Carl Jung did it.
Exactly. I was about to say, Carl Jung, what's really interesting about Carl Jung is that he didn't just vacillate on ideas and come up with these crazy concepts and just throw them out there, which a lot of people argue that that's what Freud did. But Freud basically was a pioneer, so you can only give him so much grief. He was breaking new ground, right? But what Jung did was he went back and said, okay, I'm going to take these ideas and I'm going to try them out. And he went deep, I mean, deep into his own subconscious and pulled out these archetypes, basically grabbed them by the tail and pulled them out of the subconscious, wrote them down so that the rest of us could go, oh shit, we didn't even know those guys were in there. And now we're all kind of piecing out and processing some of the heavy lifting that he did 50 years ago. And so what's really cool about the work that Nikki and I are trying to cultivate, and I know Mimi is doing this as well, is that it's not about like domination over your aspects or domination over your zodiac. It's about relationship. It's about building and cultivating relationship and knowing yourself and knowing these different aspects of yourself and how they can hinder and help you based off of how that relationship is all about. And knowing that if you neglect one of these archetypes, it's probably going to turn on you. And
it's going to run the show whether you like it or not.
Right.
When we are not looking at some part of ourselves or an aspect, or we haven't looked at it in a while. One of my first clients was this really large 6 foot something personal trainer man, and he was huge, and he had no access to his inner child. Well, we went and gave access to his inner child, and he had locked it in a freaking dungeon.
Which happens more than you think. There's a lot of inner children that are trapped in really scary places.
Yes, and they're being like totally ignored. And this is why he had so much sadness. He had so much depression because he had anger issues, resentment. Because he had access to his orphan, but he didn't have access to his innocent. And so when I went in there with him and I was like, oh my God, you just locked come here. Like I pulled my inner caregiver went out and I took it out. The very next week, this big ass man comes up the stairs of our apartment complex, bounding into my office, huge guy, and jumps on my couch like a little kid. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're not in the freaking dungeon anymore, are we?
And this guy, what's really cool, so this guy worked with me. That's how Nikki knew him. He was a personal trainer with me in Los Angeles. Very shortly after that, he devoted his time and energy to becoming a chiropractor, and he left being a personal trainer and became a healer.
Yeah. Because he got access back to his creativity.
Bingo.
And so this is what we're trying to tell you. There are certain things that are hidden in your psyche that all you have to do is have awareness and open that door and start a relationship. And those hidden aspects of yourself will then start to become not just hidden, but a really beautiful piece of you that you get to develop in the way that you feel like you need to. And you sometimes need to go to that door every day and knock on it and go, hey, I know I ignored you. I'm here. Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah. And if you guys want access to these things, we have bridges. We've built bridges for this purpose. The chakra activations that we just created, those are a huge bridge, and they're short and they're quick and they're
12
powerful.
minutes long.
They're condensed. They're like the little what do they call them? The bouillon cubes to make the broth. But if you really want to make soup, metaphorically speaking, the journey of ascension is where we really get some serious work done. And
we are starting next week. It's January 22nd.
If
you guys really want access to all these aspects, your 7 chakra aspects, but also all the aspects of yourself, really get a beautiful, deep, and intimate relationship with you. Unlock some of these hidden talents, hidden gifts that maybe you didn't even realize you had. We had one woman last time that was like, oh my God, I have the clairsmelliance where I was smelling everything. She was accessing all these dormant gifts, these psychic gifts.
Cities.
They're called cities.
Not CITY, but CIDHI.
these dormant gifts that you have. We want to give you access to this. We just created a program that will help you not have some sort of doctrine of us. It's here to give you access to you. And it's such a beautiful, such a beautiful path. And really, it's for what you get us every weekend, an hour and a half with us in a group call. You also get a meditation in the day with Ryan, meditation with me to access your subconscious for your evening. And it's literally 49 days of really going in, accessing yourself, and kind of seeing who you are, what your purpose is, why you came here. And the community kind of supports this of like going, okay, let's support ourselves to really getting in our own true sovereign alignment.
And if you want the 1-2 punch, then you can do Mimi's year ahead to help kind of give you started with that, which Mimi, I've been meaning to ask you, can I schedule a year ahead with you? Because I need some guidance. I need some direction.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to say something back about your guys' program. And one of the things today you saw, like when it came to some of the archetypes, which somebody asked, like, yes, there's replays. You can go back. This is recorded, so you can go back and watch this.
Yeah, a lot of information in this one.
Yeah.
So
this is a teaching. Get a notebook when you watch this. Get a notebook. Watch it.
Very valuable information. But what I like is that in your program, they're linking the chakras, like, like, okay, how is the third eye in relationship to the solar plexus, for instance? And, it's so easy to go through, okay, this is what the root chakra is. This is what that is. But I don't think there's anything out there that really links the chakras like you guys are doing. And I think that's one of the highlights, at least for me, of I have a bug that just wants to be with me. That's one of the highlights when I did the program, was the linkage of the chakras. And I have to say, back in the day when I did energy work, I actually found that was some of the biggest work that I did, was trying to energetically re-link chakras so that they could work together, because sometimes there was like the tyrant or the ruler, right? And it's like, I am in charge and I'm going to just take over. And all the rest of the chakras were all shrunk, And so this is something that, without going and, paying a lot of money for body work, because it adds up, right? That you can actually do this program and relink these energies yourself. So I highly recommend it. There is a code.
We got to make sure she has the right code.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's updated today to make sure we're on point with the code.
So the code, it's an $888 program, but with Gaia Blooming, it's only $499. So if you put in Mimi's code, the Gaia Blooming code, it really is a 9-week. It's 7 weeks, but you get a build up and
a prep week and an
integration week. It's a 9-week program with an hour and a half with us. And it's a meditation for every day. The value is ridiculous on what you really get.
It's an at-home intensive, was what it really is.
It's
you take it home, you do the work, but then you integrate it in your real life.
And you have really cool. Us to help. You have these group calls that you're not like spinning out on your own.
Well, it's because like when you go on retreat, it's wonderful. It's amazing. But then you have the shock of coming back into the real world and trying to figure out how to integrate that. Jack Kornfield wrote a really great book called After the Ecstasy, The Laundry. And it's basically like, once you've had this great experience, how are you going to incorporate that into your real world? And I think what our attempt to do by having this at-home program is that you're doing the work and you're getting these epiphanies and you're getting these awarenesses, but you're also still living your life. There. You're also still doing your day-to-day things. And so it's incorporating it in its very nature. It's infusing it into what you do, as opposed to being this island that you go to and then you have to come back, and that can be really jarring. This is more integrative.
And it's complete, like Mimi said, it's a really complete thing where you're going to get to know these really interesting flavors of you and how they mix. And if they're mixing in harmony or they're a little bit at odds with each other, you will get an understanding of, oh, that's where I was stuck. Okay, this is what I have to do. And that's really the essence to me of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stayed with us during this whole time, when we were talking about the destroyer, Uranus, that comes in and helps you change, the program's actually beginning on the day that Uranus goes direct, astrologically. So here we go. Like this, I tell a lot of my clients, especially when they're in a Uranus energy, is like, you make these changes before the universe pushes you into that. Here's your opportunity. Uranus comes for all of us at some point. So here's this opportunity for you to make those changes, get in touch with yourself. You can also get a reading to help you with that. But this will also help integrate these energies in your life and help organize yourself so that Uranus doesn't have to be so
and you get a lot of support. We're supporting you through that. You're not going to be like, oh, here's the tarot card, boom. It's like, there's a storm outside, but don't worry, we have shelter and blankets and extra water, and everything's going to be okay. That's me and Ryan have made sure that with our journey, we have set up guardrails. We're not on the Death Star. We do have guardrails. We have signage.
We splurged for hand railing.
we have signage. We have all the things that's going to make you feel really safe in this work. You get mom and dad energy too. We're like, okay, I'm going to take care of you. Ryan's like, all right, get your ass up the mountain.
Absolutely. So I just want to say again, I highly recommend it. And if you're worried about Mercury retrograde is ending in just a few days. So there's plenty of time to sign up after Mercury goes direct, just in case you're waiting, because I think some of you are waiting for that.
Well,
I respect that.
Yeah.
This Mercury has been really challenging, especially with
communication
has been huge. Like, we have been having some real communication.
Misunderstandings just because different perspectives.
Lost in translation stuff, just a little technical stuff. Like, Mercury is like, I got you.
Well, I think, are we finished for today?
We feel good.
Complete. How do you feel?
I feel good. I will remind everybody who is watching, I will post the links. This video it's saved on YouTube and on Facebook. And I go back in afterwards and I go repost the links. So you can access how to email me for readings, how to sign up for the Journey of Ascension, or to sign up for the activations. Words, Mercury retrograde. So
and let us know. You can go on my Facebook group or my Facebook page too. And if you just private message me, private message me and say, hey, I would like the activations, and I can send you like the Gaia blooming code for the activation as well. Because we literally, the third eye activation is what we just did.
And our intention when we created these activations was to prep people for the journey. That was our original intention. They've kind of taken on a life of their own since then, but they still fulfill that purpose of helping people prep for the journey.
Yeah, and we're probably going to put them in the journey because they'll help you catch up if you have a hard week. But so they all kind of work together. If you want to do a big bundle, we can do that as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we did not start with the meditation today, so
I just thought about that. That's funny.
I in the middle. It was like, oh, I guess we're not activating that today, but that's okay.
We have so much ground to cover. I think we wanted to get into it.
We did. I think for sure we did. So, everybody go in, check in with your archetypes. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting us. And namaste.
Namaste.
Stay in touch.